Yeah. And it's unique because I think Purdue has some of the same components. They have an unbelievable inside attack. Travion Williams and Zach Edey is a 1-2 punch. It's 40 minutes of constant size, power. But, Jaden Ivey has emerged. As a sophomore, Jaden Ivey has become one of the most dominant players in the country. And, I think when you looked at Abaji's numbers, they were staggering. And right with him right now on the season, Jaden is shooting 45% from three, which is up from 25% a year ago. So he's a much different player shooting the threes, much more confident. And he's shooting almost 60% from two as a 6'4" combo guard as well. So you're looking at a guy that's very efficient shooting the ball and scoring. And I think, when you add in how he's doing it, and then you add in the mix of the set play execution that Purdue has in the way that they handle their inside guys, is a very tough thing to deal with. Right now, Purdue's number one in the country in offensive efficiency.
So if you think about it, the two teams that we talked about, Kansas is currently number 3, Purdue is currently number 1. Mm-hmm. And they're led by these dynamic wing players in Ivey and Abaji.
And I think the thing that's unique about Purdue is they're number 2 in America in effective field goal percentage. They're shooting number 41.5% from three, and they're shooting 59% from two. Both are top 5.
Astronomical.
And the thing that's unique about Purdue this year, not as unique, but they're number 5 in America in offensive rebounding percentage. So not only are they efficient in what they're doing, they're smashing you on the offensive glass as well at almost 40% per game. And they're getting to the line as well in the top 25 in the country in terms of free throw rate. So they're not one-dimensional, shooting a ton of threes, only play power ball. They've kind of got it all going. And if you said to me, hey, you've watched Purdue for a while here, what's the difference in Purdue this year with the same personnel really than they had a year ago? Purdue struggled to shoot the three consistently in the last couple of years. I mentioned that Ivey was at 25%. This year as a team, they're top 5 in America in three-point shooting as a team. And last year they were 181. So if you want to, what's the big difference? Purdue, multiple guys right now. Isaiah Thompson, 52%. Ethan Morton, 50%. Mason Gillis, 47%. Ivey, 45%. Stefanovic, 44%. And Brandon Newman, who shot 39% as a freshman last year, is only shooting about 35 this year. But you're looking at 6 players on the floor at one time, surrounding those two mountains inside that are shooting over 40% from three. That's a big difference than they've been in a year ago. And I think when you look at Jaden Ivey, a lot like Abaji, he does it in his own unique way. And I think Purdue gets a lot of credit for being a set play team. But the thing that's different about Jaden Ivey this year compared to a year ago, or, in past, a lot like Carson Edwards, they want the ball in his hands off a defensive rebound. One, he's a great defensive rebounder as a perimeter. He does not outlet the ball. He's what we would call a pusher. He's gone. And the second thing is they'll outlet the ball to him a lot as the initiator of their push because of how lethal he is in transition. And what he's doing a lot more of this year is he's shooting the ball a lot like Carson Edwards was on the dribble. He didn't do this a year ago as much, and he's shooting it at a good clip. You can see the interference. He calls for the drag here, and that's an NBA top of the key 3. And, right now, if you watch him in transition here, he initiates the break, boom, and then he filters back. It's another NBA 3. He's shooting 45%. A year ago, he was shooting 25%. There's a big reason why he's huge difference maker for them right now. You can kind of see here as they flow, him shooting the 3 again. As he flows, you can tell he wants the ball, but none of these threes are coming stationary. Everything about him right now and shooting the ball is on the move or off the dribble or creating. He's not getting a lot of, stationary kick out threes. You can see side out of bounds play right out of the side out of bounds. If you go under, you already said, going under ball screens on certain guys eliminates the package. If you go under a ball screen, probably a lot like we watch those clips of Abaji, he is lethal right now in stopping behind the 3 and making them.
Doesn't matter how nice it looks on the napkin when you draw play up or the action, unless the player with the ball is a threat to stop and score behind the screen, the on-ball screening, the pick and roll action isn't nearly as effective. And one common theme right now that both Ivy and Abaji have in common. And Arch, to point out a difference in the two of them, Abaji is more dependent on his teammates in transition. He's running ahead. He's running to corners. He's running for a lob. He very rarely has the ball coast to coast. He can do it off of a turnover, steal, whereas I think Ivy, he's the guy with the ball and he's pushing it coast to coast himself.
Yeah, and you can see here, things break down in transition. Purdue's a motion team off of a miss. If things don't work a lot of the times, if Zach Edey's in the game, there are 4 around him. If Travion's in the game, they can actually go to 5-man motion, but you can kind of see the ball's getting swung. And, now, is this the play or the player? This is what he's doing a lot different than he was a year ago, where Matt's given him a lot of the freedom that Carson Edwards had a few years ago, where he's creating his own and he has the freedom to take a lot of these type of shots. That's the difference, I think, in what he's doing right now is he's shooting a high percentage from 3. So you can't say back off. You have to find them. You have to do things. But in transition, he's what college basketball's version of what Russell Westbrook looked like at UCLA and early at Oklahoma City. If he has the rebound or he gets the outlet on the push and you can corral him or stop the ball, it's over. He is not passing. He is all the way to the basket. It is coast to coast, rim to rim, paint touch to paint touch. You can watch miss shot, his ball, it's over. I mean, he is full throttle downhill and he's impossible right now to stop in transition. This clip right here, if you want to say, why would you say Russell Westbrook? There's very few players that I've seen that can create this much ground, this fast, and this explosive off the bounce in transition. I mean, just watch the clip if you want to see what stopping him in transition is like. He's a nightmare in transition. Now he's added the 3-point shot, but to me, Purdue's done a great job. And a lot like Abaji off the ball, he gambles, he steals, he's athletic, and he creates a lot of momentum plays for Purdue defense to offense. These are highlight reel plays that change the game. They're sort of pick sixes almost.
Arch, in Purdue, when you talk about March Madness and, can they get to the Final Four? Of course. Can they win the national championship? Of course. The one different ingredient that they have because of Ivy is getting the easy ones. In March, when the game slows down and good teams and great teams are only remaining on the schedule and the court is neutral, the game, it becomes more 5-on-5. The team that can get those easy ones, a tip dunk, right? Like you're showing right here, a steal coast to coast dunk, being able to catch the ball off the rim and go coast to coast, where you're able to get 6, 8, 10 points of these easy baskets because of your talent. Ivy gives Purdue this dimension where in the past, I don't know if some of their best teams have always had that dimension.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons that Carson Edwards went on a huge run a few years ago, late in the year. They went to the Elite Eight. They had Virginia beat. But he was a guy that on his own, without all the action, with all the good stuff that they create, he could himself make 4 or 5. You're seeing that now. And this is the curveball when you deal with Purdue. You have an electric perimeter player who can get his own. And obviously he's doing a lot of damage right now in transition. But when they get in the half court, 80% of what they're doing is going to go inside. And they have a number of different ways that they create angles in the post. I could show Travion Williams catch the ball off the lane and take 5 dribbles and jump hook as much as you want. He's a good player and he can really pass. But the gift that Purdue gives their big guys is when they catch it, they don't have to dribble. They can lay the ball in the basket. And especially when you have Zach Edey at his size, they do a great job. You can see they run a lot of Iverson cuts, a lot of double Iverson cuts, and it creates one pass and an angle. There's not a whole lot you're going to do with Zach Edey, whether you're behind on the line, up the line, or you're in full front mode when you have 45% 3-point shooters at all the positions. And it's one pass, the ball's in.
Great pass.
And that's the easiest 2 points you're going to get. And the other thing Matt does a great job of is his best passers are always feeding the ball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was Dakota Mathias a few years ago. This year, right now, it's Stefanovic a lot of the times. But you can see the Iverson to the corner, the double Iverson over the top. Caleb First has a little dummy flare at the top. You can play behind, you can play on the line, but when that size is in play and they create the angle, there's just nothing you're going to do with the big fella.
Yeah.
Here's another half court against the zone. And again, you'll watch Travion Williams. They do a great job against the zone. You want to play them zone because you don't want to defend. You're in foul trouble. They do just as good of a job of creating the angle. He did it almost before the ball was passed. If you watch Travion Williams on the overload against the zone, side ball screen overload, duck in, watch the angle he created. And Ethan Morton, a lot like Stefanovic, Mathias, he's in the game because he does his job. He's a great feeder right down the shoot and 2 points, creating angles and throwing the ball to their front court players without having to dribble. You'll see a different version of the same overload to Edey. You have an undercut by Morton, and then you have a quick, elbow to elbow Iverson over the top. It's the same play out of a different alignment, and it doesn't matter what you do when you're this big and you angle. And the only thing their front court players do a lot of time, they don't worry about the play. The only thing they're worrying about is, how am I going to get this guy where I need to get him? When the ball hits his hands, do I have the angle? And you can kind of see right here, Gillis goes with a little sloppy flare. You have Morton cutting to the corner. Boom.
And I tell you what, Arch, when I watch this, you almost get sick to your stomach.
You do.
You have to play Purdue because, the Jaden Ivey component by itself is a lot.
It's a lot.
You're talking about one of the premier players, and you could see what he gives them is he gives them pace. Purdue's playing at a faster pace, by the way.
They are. And a lot of it is because I think in transition, they've given him the get-go. He has it, get it to him, do what you got to do.
But he can break you down in a different way. And then obviously where Matt Painter's always been great is when the game's 5-on-5, his execution in the half court, running his sets, getting the ball to his best players in the right position. Nobody's better at that, but he didn't always have the first dynamic with it, which is Jaden Ivey and getting those easy baskets I talked about a little bit ago. I mean, when you're in late March and you're playing for the Sweet 16 to go to the Elite Eight or the Final Four, however many easy baskets you can get will determine a lot of times whether you advance or not. They have a player on their team, regardless of how beautiful their plays are, that can beat you in a different way. And then when you add these plays with that size and execution, that's why, like you said, they're the number one offensive team in college basketball. Feels
So
like watching.
Yeah. I mean, a little different version of what they're getting ready to do here, but you can kind of see, they're overloading anytime he's in the game off a different movement, whether it's Iverson cuts or overloads, but you're going to see a stagger action, which is going to filter with Gillis now filtering as the first stagger screener to the corner, and Morton, their key trigger passer, is going to catch it. And you're going to have the same screen away happening guard to guard. And you can kind of see Butler did a decent job on the entry, but it does get in. And again, it's over with those overloads. So now you move a little bit different here with Purdue. What's a second way that they're creating what we call those bingo, like just bingo plays, where it's the angle, it's the unstoppable play? To me, Purdue is as good as any in the country right now, utilizing their big players to throw lobs to them. When they move them on the perimeter, they set screens or they receive screens. A lot of the time, it's all fluff to throw the ball over the top for another easy basket. And Travion's going to pop right wing. They're going to run their normal action, and you're going to kind of see right here, Jaden Ivey's the screener, and they put their best players, whether it's Carson Edwards, Stefanovic, Jaden Ivey is the screener. They're going to hug them up. If they know you're whipping the screen or cutting over the top to beat Travion to the block, well, they cleared that side out. You whip that screen, your best screener is your best offensive player. They overload the side and the ball side corner with a good shooter. And you can see Stefanovic, another great post feeder, lob. The play's the lob. It's not the post up. So as much as their inside game is, hey, they got good post players, it's the angles and it's the actions that they're getting these guys the easiest baskets you can get. When Edey's in the game, we used to say it all the time, lob awareness. Every single time that he sets a screen or receives a screen, the play is for him. You can see this is a multiple action. They got you moving off a stagger, and you can kind of see Eric Hunter will curl off of the first, slice, boom, slice, stagger action. He curls the first, he becomes a screener. And they lob to Edie, which is the easiest play. He's going to get 2 to 4 of these dunks a game because
Archie,
he's a
go back to that play right there. One thing that's great, if you press stop right there, if you watch the design of the play, Purdue, their guy using the stagger right now, he's a cutter. And when he's a cutter, what your job is guarding him is to chase the cutter, right? To trail, to prevent him from scoring. So he's a cutter. So if you watch his defender, he's trailing, he's chasing him because he looks at him as a scorer. Well, all of a sudden he goes from a scorer to screener. So look at his man. The guy guarding him can't help on the back screen. Why? Because he
on the wrong
treats him as
side.
a scorer. He's chasing the cutter. Boom. It's a great design. And obviously, if you have somebody that big, very difficult to defend.
Right. So, I mean, that's 2 versions of when they're on the perimeter as passers. And this is another one right here. You're going to see this is one of their babies, whether it's side out of bounds, whether it's a cross screen, or whether it's a down screen, because you just saw, Travion pop to the wing, or you saw Zach pop to the top and reverse the ball. So as they're getting ready to move to the perimeter for a catch, their counter is always the reject to throw the lob.
Yeah.
Same thing. And I can't give enough credit to obviously Purdue's designs, but the feeder is always the same on every one of their lob plays. It's Ethan Morton or it's Stefanovic. And they're
One of the keys to guarding Purdue,
ball pressure.
Ball
pressure.
They're in the half court and they're running 5-on-5 man.
It's almost to the point where you have to make, we would say the guy has to turn his back in spots. If they catch it on the wing or they catch it at the top of the key, you have to jam them. You almost have to make them turn their back.
Make them a driver, high hands, ball pressure. If you don't have those components, it's difficult.
Now, the last thing that I would say is you got these good post players. How are these other guys going to benefit from all the attention they're going to get? Travion Williams and Zach Edey both are very good post passers. Travion Williams is the best post feeder or the best post passer that Matt has had. He said that a number of times. And Edey's gotten to the point now where he can read the doubles and the spacing and dump it. But this is 4-6 points a game. Last night against Nichols, their 2 front court players had 12 assists at the center position. They had 30 assists on 35 field goals in the game. 12 of them came from their center. And it's always the dive. It's always the front court players diving. It's dealing with the post trap. You're going to see another one right here as they create their action. Big fella's going to have it. They're going to run a little stagger magic action, and they're going to overload the floor and throw it in. When they throw the ball into them, there's a double. It's a slough. It's the paint, and you can kind of see again the dive. They're constantly moving off the ball, getting easy action. So without really just showing Purdue what's making them what they are right now, Jaden Ivey's a much different player in transition than he's been. He's a nightmare rim to rim. And now he's added the component where he's a 45% three-point shooter, more so than he was a year ago. And the threes that he's catching, the threes that he's making are playmaker threes. He's making hard ones. And then the elephant in the room is, what do you do with the post? Well, you have a lot of different ways to defend the post. But I tell you, Purdue's beating you a lot of angle ways, how you play the post. They can beat you on the double. And I didn't even add in the 50 clips that we could have shown those 2 big guys and their fours, First and Gillis in particular, killing the glass. They're beating you a lot of ways: offensive rebounding, post play, 3-point line from 5 positions. And to me, they are the number 1 offense in the country. And what's it going to take to beat them? I really believe this as I watch them. When they get their draws for the NCAA tournament, if they see an Auburn, if they see a team that's not going to allow them to sort of function and run their system, has the best chance of kind of knocking a Purdue off. If you're going to throw a fastball at them 100 times out of 100, I'm telling you, they're going to bat a high percentage against your defense with how they call offense and how they run offense. They have a lot of answers. But to me, that's why they're the hardest team to guard in the country right now, just in terms of their offensive playmaking ability outside and inside.